What the hell is up, everybody? Louie back here again for a huge banger of a card in Perth, Australia. The main event for the 155-pound lightweight strap. Islam Makhachev taking on Alexander the Great Volkanovski, moving up from 145, trying to become a double champion. The fight we've all been waiting for a long time. And then, coincidentally, in the co-main event, you got the interim featherweight championship, 145 pounds. Yair El Pantera Rodriguez taking on Josh Emmett. Pretty interesting. Both of these fights have a lot of consequences for 155 and 145 moving forward, so should be pretty interesting. Rest of the card, not so interesting, but in the feature fight, you got Jack Della Maddalena taking on Randy Rude Boy Brown. We'll see who's going to become a new contender in this welterweight division. Anyway, let's get right into it here. We should have a fun action-packed card. First fight of the night at 155 pounds. Men's lightweight, you got Zubair Tukhugov taking on Elvis Brenner. Tukhugov moving up from 145 from his last fight. Tukhugov took on Ricardo Ramos his last fight. In the first round, he's just stalking and countering with some short hooks. Then he would counter the jabs off of Ramos's crosses, and then he lands some overhands against the fence, which rocked him kind of. But then he walked into a spinning elbow and got rocked himself. But then in the second round, he just starts pumping his jabs out of range, and he looks for a cross, and he counters to the overhands. And then, but then he eats a counter, and then a 1-2, just kind of standing at range, just kind of hanging out. But then he's able to cut off the cage, and he starts landing some nasty hooks, and then he starts jabbing, and then shoots a double leg right at the end of the round. Then in the third round, he picks up with those jabs, stalks forward, but then he eats some hook counters moving forward, but then he's able to circle out and maintain range and not get hit with anything big. Decent end of the fight, decent jab he established there. Then Elvis Brenner took on Dennis Silva. I couldn't find his last 4 fights because they were in Predator FC. I don't know what that is. I scoured the internet. I'm sorry, but this was in 2019. He took on Dennis Silva outside the UFC, obviously. First round, he just kind of circles on the outside, looks for some counter overhands, and looks for some short hooks on the entry. Then in the second round, he's kind of backs up, but he starts pumping his jabs. He gets walked down, but then he eats a hook flurry on the fence. He gets walked down again on the fence, and then he starts eating some kicks here, so he's kind of trying to find a spot here. He's able to get the double leg, but he can't hold him, and then he eats some hooks on the way back up. Third round, he lands some counter overhands and some short hooks as he's on the retreat, backing up, but then he gets doubled at the end and eats some ground and pound. So, not the best showing for him. Hopefully he got better within that time. Elvis Brenner, plus 450, Zubair Tukhugov, minus 600. I'm going to go with Zubair here. I don't like this price at all, but it is what it is, dude. First fight of the night. I would say the fight goes the distance, maybe, just because he's not really a finisher. But I'm just going to go with Zubair here. And, if a plus 450 underdog hits, first fight of the night, gotta be damned, All right, second fight of the night at 145 pounds, men's featherweight. You got Shane Young taking on Blake Bilder. Shane Young took on Omar Morales his last fight. This was a few years ago. He's come off a couple-year layoff here. In the first round, he gets the knee to the clinch, but then he misses the toss attempt, and he gets mat returned. But then he gets right back up, and he's able to maintain clinch position. Second round, he gets a double leg off of his leg kick. He's not able to hold him down. But then he loses the position with the leg. He goes for the leg lock and he loses it. But then back up on the feet, he pressures towards the cage, starts establishing some dominance. But then he eats some jabs, but he kind of at range, and he circles out though, just trying to slip the jabs. Then in the third round, he presses forward with some jabs, transitions to the clinch, but then he gets body locked and he gets dragged down, but he pops right back up, and he's able to use deep half to get up. But then back on the feet, he walks right into some crosses again, so not really a great showing for him. And then Blake Bilder took on Alex Morgan his last fight. This was in the Contender Series. In the first round, he circles outside, lands some step-in jabs, and he keeps on circling, sticking and moving. Then he backs out of range of the straight shots, does it nicely, and then he lands a step-in right cross. And then he immediately takes the back as soon as he has him hurt. And then he gets the rear naked choke, and then the rear naked choke attempt, and then there's a bit of a scramble there, but he's able to follow his hips, and then reinsert the hooks and get his hips established, and then gets the rear naked choke. So, yeah, it wasn't just like a club and sub immediately. He had to showed that he had competent grappling on the ground and was able to maintain control of the back and had solid technique and got the rear naked choke submission. Blake Builder plus 120, Shane Young minus 140. Blake Builder all day. Shane Young's coming off a layoff. Blake Builder might be a little green, might be a little bit explosive in the first round, but Shane Young, I just have no frame of reference for it. I think Builder is going to have a lot to prove. He's going to go out there and try to ice him with the big shot, maybe get the rear naked choke. Who knows? But I'm not going to bet on Shane Young, a 2-year-long layoff, plus money. I'm going to go with Blake Builder here. We'll see, though. I don't know a whole lot about them. Third fight of the night at 135 pounds, women's bantamweight. You got Luke Boonmee taking on Elise Reed. Luke Boonmee took on Denise Gomez her last fight. In the first round, she lands some leg kicks and some front kicks from range. She defends the body lock. She's able to get them out, and she's able to take the back, but then she gets reversed from that position, and then she's eventually put in an arm triangle in the round, so kind of loses some momentum there. Then the second round, she gets a body lock trip, but she's not able to transition to the back completely. She eats some knees in the clinch, but then she defends a single, and she's able to get the headlock, and then nice headlock whenever Gomez is hipping into her, and then she's able to land some nice ground and pound from half guard position. And then in the third round, she eats some elbows in the clinch, but then she's able to get the headlock again, but then she gets put in a leg lock, and she gives up her back in that scramble. Then she's able to reverse again, and then land some nice ground and pound to end the fight. So put a decent stamp on it. Just kind of getting a little loose with some of the positions, but, you know, good scramble ability. Then Elise Reed took on Melissa Martinez her last fight. In the first round, she catches a kick and she drops her with the right cross. She defends the double, but then she gets body locked. But then she's able to defend the body lock, and then she's able to pummel for position and try to stay up on her feet. Then in the second round, she stalks forward and she looks for some step-in right hands and some blitzes. And then she eats across that range and then some front kicks. Then in the third round, she eats some leg kicks when she's stalking, and then she walks right into a double leg. Not very high IQ. But then tries to get back up to her feet. They get into a clinch battle. She goes for the overhook trip, gets it momentarily, but she's not able to cover her hips and maintain position. But then toward the end of the fight, she's able to get a back trip from the clinch position, and then she lands some nasty ground and pound from around the back. So she had a really strong finish to that fight. Elise Reed plus 260. Luke Boonmee minus 315. It's lower level women's MMA. It's lower level women's bantamweight MMA. And Elise Reed is a huge favorite. I'm not going to lay minus 315 on Luke Boonmee. Yeah, she's a better striker, but you know what? Elise Reed is a dog. She's going to fight for your dollar. And, Luke Boonmee might get a little sloppy in the fight. Elise Reed might be able to take her down and do some ground and pound, might be able to steal a round or two. I'm going to go with Elise Reed here, Fourth fight of the night at 145 pounds. Men's featherweight, you got Jack Jenkins coming off the Contender Series, taking on Don Shanis. Jenkins took on Freddie Linares his last fight. First round, he's able to duck the blitz, double leg immediately into half guard, some nasty ground and pound, transition to the mount, but he gets reversed with the heel hook toward the end of the round, eats some ground and pound, no big deal, so had a lot of dominance. Second round, he lands some knees from the collar tie, then he's able to shoot the double leg, score that, and then he gets around the back, lands some nice ground and pound in the second round. Third round, he just kind of backs out of range and he circles. Then he initiates the clinch. He's able to get the trip takedown. Then back on the feet, he's able to get another body lock, and he's able to defend the crackdown position from Linares on his knees. And then he's able to get them out, take the back, ground and pound TKO. Dude is nasty with the backs. When he gets to the ground, he doesn't waste any time. I really like that. Don Shanis took on Sadiq Youssef, short notice UFC debut. Again, Sadiq Youssef, first round, he eats some knees, but then he's able to rip the body, but then he gets pulled into a guillotine, gets submitted in 30 seconds. That's going to happen. Sadiq's pretty good. But before that, outside the UFC, took on Cody Pfister. In the first round, he lands an overhand right and then a left whenever he gets pressed. But then he lands some counter left hooks to the body lock, right into half guard to the mount, but then he gets reversed, but then he's able to hit an elevator sweep, and then he's able to take his back and get TKO by ground and pound again. So two guys like to finish on the ground. Decent showing from him, I guess. Don Shanis plus 280, Jack Jenkins minus 340. Kind of tough to justify this one, but I just see Jack Jenkins. His pressure is different, and he's going for the finish, and he's not like scrambling around. And Don Shanis, took on Sadiq Youssef, takes a lot of balls, but he got demolished. And, both guys have kind of similar styles, I guess. but I think Jenkins is going to be able to do some more damage on the feet, set it up, get to the clinch, get to a double leg position, and once he gets Sheamus on the ground, Sheamus might be able to reverse here or there, but I think Jenkins is going to be able to go 3 hard rounds, no problem. Line's a little big, but I'm going to go with Jack Jenkins here. I just really had a good feeling about him. Co-main event of the early prelims, 155 pounds, men's lightweight. You got Jamie cut the Malarkey taking on Francisco Prado. Malarkey had a war with Michael Johnson in his last fight. The first round, he circles on the outside, lands some straight rights to the body and then to the head. But then he gets dropped with the right hook off of his step-in jab. But then he's able to get back up, recover, and then he drops him with the right and then a left cross, and then he starts landing some nasty elbows toward the end there, able to stuff the single leg attempt from Johnson. Then in the second round, he lands some jabs and a long right hook, and then he lands some presses with some jabs and some nice head kicks. Then he lands some jump knees to the clinch, lands some dirty elbows in there. But then he gets countered with a straight left when he's coming in, gets a little too overzealous inside the pocket. But then in the third round, momentum changes again. Michael Johnson takes over. He eats a right hook in the pocket with his hands down, just kind of hanging around, getting a little cocky maybe. But then he eats some jabs at range, and then all his double leg attempts get stuffed, and they're too far out, and they're kind of desperate. So he won that close split decision, whatever. And then Francisco Prado, he's only 20 years old, by the way. He took on Jose Barrios his last fight. This was all outside the UFC. Stalks and eats some leg kicks and overhands to the clinch. Sorry, he stalks forward, eats some leg kicks, but then he lands some overhands and transitions to the clinch, and then he lands some nice knees in there to the body, and then he lands an overhand right, and then a left hook, gets a TKO. So pretty nice combination from him, set it up decent with the clinch. Before that, he took on Adrian Perron. In the first round, he misses a wild overhand, and he eats a counter left hook, but then he's able to get the double transition immediately to the back mount and gets TKO via ground and pound. So a good showing from him. Francisco Prado plus 225, Jimmy Malarkey minus 265. This is just you got to know where you're at in the situation. Francisco's 20 years old, hasn't fought in very good conferences. He hasn't taken on any big names at all, no notable veterans. Jamie Malarkey, he's had his ups and downs, but he's fought Jalen Turner, just fought Michael Johnson. He's had some good knockouts in the UFC. So I'm going to go with this experience here. I think Jamie is that tough, grizzled veteran type of guy that has enough experience that whenever a new flashy contender comes up, it's more than they bargained for, I think so. And after the first round, I think Malarkey's going to be able to take over. He can go 3 hard rounds. I like seeing that. Minus 265, don't love it, but I'm going to go with the grizzled veteran here and Jamie Malarkey. I think that's a good bet. All right, the main event of the early prelims at 125 pounds men's flyweight. You got Shannon, the Turkish Delight Ross, best nickname on the card by far, taking on Clayton Rodriguez. Ross took on Vinicius Salvador his last fight. In the first round, he misses some overhands and he eats some left hooks at range, but then he gets backed up with the jump knee, and then he gets dropped with the left hook, but then he's able to get back to his feet, and then he lands some right hooks. Remember, he gets pressed inside the pocket, and then he presses forward with some hooks, but then he gets dropped again with the left hook, just kind of walks right into it, but then he lands some counter right crosses over top of his hooks, so he starts kind of finding his range toward the end of that round, even though he did take some significant damage. Then in the second round, he lands some body kicks at range, lands some right crosses, then a head kick, nice combo. Then he jabs to the body, and then he lands some right crosses to the head against the fence. But then he gets rocked with the right hook off of his cross, stepping in a little too far, and then just gets knocked out with the right hook with that combination, with a counter. So, tough one, but, he did battle through some adversity, but I think he takes a little too much damage. And then Clayton Rodriguez took on CJ Vergara his last fight. In the first round, he gets pressed back with some body hooks and leg kicks, but then he's able to land an uppercut to the body, and then he gets the body lock trip takedown in there. In that exchange, then he able to land a body kick back on the feet. He eats a left hook, but then he lands some overhands and hooks whenever he gets pressed in the pocket, so he's looking for those counters, looking to be a little smarter than his opponent. Second round, he gets pancaked off of a double, and then he just gets beat up in full guard, and then he gives up his back, but he's able to swim out, and then gets back to his feet. Then he lands some nice elbows inside the clinch there. Then in the third round, he lands a right hook whenever he gets pressed, but then he gets dropped with the body knee, but then he takes his back with a calf slicer attempt and just kind of holds him there for the rest of the round. So very strange fight. Don't know what to make of that. It looks like he was dominating at times, but at times he was getting dominated. It looked like he might have got finished. So I don't really know, but I know that Clayton Rodriguez is minus 325, and Shannon Ross is plus 270. And that line's insane. Clayton Rodriguez, you know, nothing special. No offense. Not at this point in his career anyway. And he's only had one UFC fight, so, you know, he didn't blow the doors off of it. So I don't know why he's this high of a favorite. And then Shannon Ross, evidently in his Contender Series fight that he lost, but he had appendicitis, so they gave him a contract. Don't know if I agree with that, but, you know, we'll rock with that because he's plus 270, and I really want to pick him, and his nickname's awesome. And I think he can get the job done, and I think he can take some damage and just hang in there. And, you know, Clayton Rodriguez, not the most tolerant to damage either. So I think it'll be a fun scrap, but I think Salvador will be able to get it done. And I think he'll be able to get down on the feet, hopefully stuff the takedown from Rodriguez. Who knows? But I'm not trying to lay minus 325 for Rodriguez. I'm going to go with Shannon Ross, the Turkish Delight here. And then it's a flyweight fight. So under 2.5 rounds, minus 115, not a bad play. First fight of the regular prelims, 1 out of 2. Technically, the prelims co-main event, 145 pounds, men's featherweight. Josh Kulabau taking on Melsik Baghdasaryan. Kulabau coming off a big win over Sungwoo Choi. First round, hangs out on the outside, tries to get in with a 1-2 and then a left hook. Then he lands a head kick and a left hook, crashes into him, lands a 1-2, and then he gets back out of range. And then he rocks him with some left hooks in a firefight, and then he drops him with a nice uppercut there. Just not afraid to exchange there in the gunfight. Second round, he lands some lunge left hooks, and then he gets out of range. Drops him with the 1-2, straight down the middle, perfect timing. Caught Sungwoo Choi with his hands down. Then he lands a check right hook off of a dip-in by Sungwoo Choi. Then in the third round, he lands a dip-in overhand rights, goes to that a lot. Then they're in a clinch battle, and then he gets back-tripped, and he gives up his back for the majority of the round. But, you know, he dropped the dude twice, hurt him really bad. I could see if he was a little tired, so. But, you know, Sungwoo Choi, solid win. Been on a bit of a slide lately, but I thought that was a really strong performance. And Sungwoo Choi hits like a truck, so. And then Melsik Baghdasaryan took on Bruno Souza, his last fight. So it was a little over a year ago. In the first round, he pressures with some leg kicks, and then he's able to defend a single leg. Doesn't do a ton, really. Actually, nobody did anything. Second round, he follows him, but he can't cut off the cage. Just kind of following him. Doesn't really take advantage. But then he lands a lunge left right over the top of his jab. Then he slips the straights in the pocket, and then he lands an uppercut and then a left hook. And then in the third round, he crashes in with some hooks and lands a knee to the head. But then he misses the jabs, but he's able to defend the single leg attempt. And then he just kind of slows down as the fight goes on. And neither guy really did much. So, it's minus 110 either way. I'm going to go Josh Kulabau just based on last performance. And, you know, he's a finisher. He's going to go for it. Melsik doesn't do a lot. He might be looking to catch Josh with a counter there. But, you know, I think Kulabau has the power and he has the activity to out-volume Melsik if it goes the distance. I like Josh Kulabau here. It's a coin flip, though, but he just really impressed me his last fight. The main event of the prelims, 205 pounds, men's light heavyweight. You got Tyson Pedro taking on Modestas Bukauskas. Bukauskas making his UFC return. Tyson Pedro took on Harry Hunsucker his last fight. First round, stalks forward, pumps the jab, and then he hurts him with a step-in jab, and then lands a body kick and then a KO. So, pretty vicious stuff. Then before that, he took on Ike Villanueva. This was his UFC return after like 2 years, I believe. In the first round, he just kind of paused the jab, and he circles back, and then he lands some leg kicks. Then he's feigning, and he's trying to look for a counter here, trying to draw something out of Ike. Then he cuts him off the cage with a left hook and then a right cross. And then he backs out of the blitz, and then he hurts him with some leg kicks. Ike can't really take leg kicks the best, so it's not saying a whole lot, but still. You know, he's got to be decently powerful. Then he lands a 1-2 and a leg kick, which drops him, and lands an uppercut with his back against the fence with like 10 seconds left in the round. Gets a vicious knockout. So, you know, pretty good stuff. Not fighting top-level competition, fighting bottom-tier competition, but he's dispatching of them like their bottom-tier competition, so he's doing the right thing. Modestas Bukauskas took on Chuck Campbell in Cage Warriors. In the first round, he lands a head kick at range, then he lands a step-in 1-2. Neither guy really does much. This fight was a boring slop fest. Then in the second round, he misses the overhand and he gets clinched, over swings. But then he's able to reverse. Decent in those clinch battles, I guess. But then he eats a 1-2 when he's just kind of standing at range. But then he circles out and just kind of squares up and doesn't keep getting hit in the face. At the end of the third round, he lands a lead left hook. Then he lands a step-in right cross, and then he's able to go to the clinch, and that's kind of his game plan. So, yeah, Modestas Bukalkas plus 190, Tyson Pedro minus 225. Tyson Pedro might be a little hyped up, to be honest, but, you know, he's looked great in his last 2 performances, and hopefully this is a new him, 31 years old, entering his prime here. Line's a little bit wide, but, you know, Bukalkas also got his knee destroyed by Khalil Rountree Jr., so a couple fights ago, so who knows. I'm going to go with Tyson Pedro. Light heavyweight is kind of sketchy at the lower levels, but, you know, I think Pedro's got the power. I think he's got the patience. I don't think Bukalkas is going to do enough activity and doesn't really have any real power to threaten him, I don't think. And, you know, Pedro seems like he's improving, so I'm going to go with Tyson Pedro right here, minus 225. I can see a finish happening as well. So if you want to go inside the distance, wouldn't be a bad play. First fight of the pay-per-view, 205 pounds men's light heavyweight again. You got Jimmy the Brute Crute making his long-awaited return, taking on Alonzo Atomic Menifield. Jimmy Crute took on Jamal Hill. This was a little while ago, over a year ago. In the first round, he pumps head and leg kicks, but they mostly get blocked. But he's still trying to move around and get some feelers out there. But then he kicks, lands a head kick, but then he gets dropped with the step-in right hook off of his leg kick. Then he gets KO'd with the check right hook off of his overhand. So, yeah, man, not a whole lot, but he's easy to counter over the top. Yeah. And then he took on Anthony Smith before that. That was April 2021. He took on Anthony Smith. In the first round, he pumps some leg kicks. Then he lands a body kick, but then he eats a jab coming forward. But then he walks into a check hook, and then he gets rocked with some jabs, and Anthony just jabs his face off the entire fight. But then he eats a right cross and a blitz of hooks by Anthony, but then he gets dropped from a leg kick. But then he's able to get the double leg while he can't walk, and then he's able to take Anthony's back, and then they stop it after this first round in the corner because he can't walk on it. But, you know, pretty impressive. He's pretty tough. But Jamal Hill, he's the champion now. So, yeah. Then Alonzo Menifield took on Misha Serkinov his last fight. In the first round, he eats a jab, blitz, and overhand, and a hook. And he's able to go to the clinch from there, just kind of works his way in. But then he misses the hook, but then he's able to defend the double leg attempt. But then he lands a step-in left hook, gets a KO kind of out of nowhere. And Alonzo's working with Pat Barry now, and he has got some bombs. So, Alonzo Menifield plus 160, Jimmy Crute minus 190. Lower level men's light heavyweight. You know, Jimmy, he's got some power. Alonzo's got some power. I think Jimmy's a little more accurate, but I think Alonzo's a little more wild. I think he's going to create more opportunities for himself, though. I think Alonzo is going to force his way in. Jimmy Crute, he might be able to land a couple select shots, land a counter. If he decided to wrestle, I think that would be an advantage for him, but he just really doesn't unless he has to. And it's, you know, like I said, lower level light heavyweight. Menifield looks improved. He's letting his hands go. I think they might just get into a firefight, and I think Alonzo can hurt him, and I think he can counter him. And, you know, taking a lot of damage his last couple fights, so maybe it won't take too much to get him out of there. I'm going to go with Alonzo Menifield here. Second fight on the pay-per-view, 265 pounds men's heavyweight. You got Justin Tafa taking on Parker Porterhouse Porter. This should be a slot fest. Does it belong on pay-per-view? Definitely not, but here we are. And they're going to buck him and chuck him. So, Justin Tafa took on Harry Hunsucker's last fight. In the first round, he rocks him, catches the kick, lands an overhand left, pushes him down. He gets the back standing, can't do much with it, though. Then he eats overhand off of his knee, and then he just kind of backs up. And then he slides back, lands a check right hook, and then he's able to stuff the single. And then lands a head kick, beautiful head kick, and gets a knockout. Destroys him. Beautiful stuff. Before that, he took on Jared Vandera. Went all 3 rounds. I'm only going to go over the first one. It was boring. First round, sliding overhand left inside the pocket. Then he lands some hooks to the body inside the clinch, but then he eats a knee on his way out. But then he starts swinging wild, just kind of missing, and you can tell he's getting angry, trying to get one back, a little immature. But then he eats some jabs and a knee when he's coming forward. So, you know, things aren't going his way. He, you know, he doesn't stay disciplined, really. Parker Porter took on Alain Badeau his last fight in the first round. He eats an uppercut rushing in the clinch, but then he lands some overhand rights from there. Then he gets a single to the clinch against the fence. And his takedown attempts are awful, but at least he's trying. Second round, he lands a lunge overhand right, but he leads with his head, so he's got to watch that. Then he starts pumping some leg kicks, getting the activity going. Then he throws some overhands to the double, but he has a lot of trouble finishing. He doesn't bring his hips in. He has face down, ass up, but then he gets around his back to the clinch, so he got something off of it, but couldn't finish it. Then in the third round, he blocks the jabs, and he lands a lead left hook. And then he eats a left hook at range with his hands down. Don't know what that's about. But then he walks into a jab and then an uppercut. But then he ducks the overhand. His double attempt gets stuffed, but then he clinches and he gets the double. Finally, he gets off the fence, picks him up, drives him, slams him right into half guard, lands some nasty, vicious ground and pound, and that's just what he needed because I think that third round was a swing round and he got it. He has a lot of heart. Say what you will about him. Parker Porter, plus 110. Justin Tafa, minus 130. Low-level heavyweights, we go with the underdog. But besides that, unless Justin Tafa can knock him out, I think Porter is going to out-hustle him. He's going to outwork him. He's going to out-grapple him. And, maybe Tafa comes out strong in the first round, second and third round, second half of the second round. Parker is going to be bulldozing him. He's just going to be pushing him and clinching him. He's going to be landing some hooks, some nasty shots. Tafa's going to need to get range. Tafa's going to swing wild. And Porter's going to clinch him, maybe get a trip. Hopefully he worked on his wrestling. But I'm going to go with Parker Porter here. I think he has more tools. Over 2.5 rounds, plus 125. Low-level heavyweights, great bet. The feature fight of the evening at 170 pounds, men's welterweight. You got Jack Della Maddalena taking on Randy Rude Boy Brown. Both guys on the cusp of getting ranked here. So both guys need a win here. And whoever wins is going to ascend and be a contender within the space, within the rankings. Both guys, Randy had a couple setbacks, a couple vicious knockouts, but he's trying to regain his confidence, regain his status, and Jack Della is just trying to get into superstardom. So Jack Della took on Danny Roberts his last fight. In the first round, he lands a straight left and then a right hook, slides in with some jabs from range, then he lands a hook flurry, includes the body and the head. I like his body work. Then he slips, and then he lands a left hook and then a right uppercut, which drops him. Very vicious. Back on the feet, he eats a jab when he's coming in, but then he's able to slip the hooks. And, he knows it's coming, so he's not going to stick around for that. But then he ducks the hook, lands a left hook to the body, and then a flurry to the body and the head, just unloads on him. Keeps control, though, tight hooks, and gets the knockout. Viciously. And he waits for his time to explode, doesn't waste any energy if he doesn't have to, very efficient. Then Randy Rude Boy Brown took on Francisco Trinaldo his last fight. This was a tight, sloppy one. In the first round, he lands some jabs at range and then some front kicks, and then he's kind of paused his jab, but then he drops him with a straight right. Really nice, right down the pipe, but doesn't really capitalize from there. But then he gets pushed back with the 1-2, and then he gets clinched and taken down off of his jump knee. Low IQ move, but then he scrambles to a front headlock, tries the Darce, can't really get it, short time. Then in the second round, jabs, straight right, but then he eats a cross when he's circling into him. But then he eats some straights to the body, then to the head from Francisco. He eats overhand off of his jab whenever he leans in to throw, so kind of sticking his head out there. Then in the third round, he lands some side kicks and some leg kicks at range. But then he misses the cross and then he eats an overhand, but he retreats and then he gets dropped with a leg kick. And Francisco just gets on top of him and beats him up in full guard for the rest of the round. Gives up that round completely. That's kind of unacceptable. And, he could have lost a point for a fence grabs earlier in the first round. So who knows? Randy Brown plus 250 and Jack Della is minus 300. Don't love the price, but I just think Jack Della is the more accurate striker. Randy doesn't really utilize doesn't utilize much grappling. I think his kicks might give Jack a little bit of trouble, but Jack's very patient, and like I said, he's very efficient, and, Randy just makes bad decisions. Like, he'll go for, like, a jump knee, or he'll go for some flashy stuff, and I think Jack is going to just be able to crack him right down the pipe, land a cross, land an uppercut, you name it, and then if they get inside the pocket, Jack is just going to do work, rips the body and the head. Randy doesn't rip the body too much. Don't love the price, but I'm going to go with Jack Della Maddalena here. I think he just gets it done. It's one of those fights he's got to lay the chalk on. All right, the co-main event of the evening at 145 pounds, men's featherweight. Yair El Pantera Rodriguez taking on Josh Emmett for the interim featherweight strap, while the great fights for the lightweight strap. I like how they're putting them both together on this card. I think it's interesting. All right, Yair Rodriguez took on Brian Ortega his last fight in June. First round, he jabs in some right crosses over the top, but then he leans back out of the 1-2s. And then he'll return 1-2s. Then he gets clinched to the fence, but he keeps the whizzer. Decent defense there. He lands a 1-2 from range, and then he lands a front face kick, and then a straight right. And then he gets hip tossed, but he has like a modified armbar type of thing. He's scrambling off his back, and then Ortega's shoulder pops out. But Rodriguez looked really good, man. He was piecing him up on the feet. The fight didn't go very long, but I liked what I saw. Before that, he took on Max Holloway. In the first round, he gets pressured back, but then he eats a straight right, but then he lands some kicks when Max is coming in, and then he lands some leg kicks and a hook to the body and then the head. It lands some 1-2s at range, going into the pocket, but then he gets countered with the cross, just kind of leading with his head a little bit. But then he gets the body lock in the single attempt off of Max's back kick, so he's taking advantage of that. Then in the second round, he lands an overhand right and then a left hook on the inside. Then he just keeps pumping his jabs at range, circling, sticking and moving there, trying to find the range. Then he lands some leg kicks, but then he gets backed up and eats some straights. He eats some straight combos on the cage, but then he kind of circles out and lands his jabs. Just doesn't sit there and accept it. Doesn't just sit there and show up. And, it's kind of back and forth. I just want to look at the fifth round because I want to see how he does at the end of the round. It's a 5-round fight. The fifth round, lands some body kicks and some 1-2s. He gets cut off on the cage, though, and he eats some short shots by Max. But then he falls on a spinning back kick, low IQ move. But then he hits the elevator sweep, and he tries to go for a top guillotine. Can't get it. Decent attempt, I guess. But then they kind of go back and forth in the clinch, and then he lands some straight combinations at the end there. So, looked pretty good for the most part against Max. Just, tried some stupid spinning shit, but that's his game, so it's cool. And then Josh Emmett took on Calvin Kattar his last fight. This was back in June. In the first round, he presses his jabs to the 1-2, and then he walks into some straight shots from Calvin, but then he lands a step-in, long left hook, and then a long left hook. But then he eats some step-in crosses when he's coming inside the pocket. But then he's able to cut him off with the overhand right and then a left hook toward the end of the round. So I like seeing that, just kind of stalking him, taking his time. Then in the second round, he tries to get in with some big overhands, but they're all short. They don't hit the target. He's trying to get his way in, maybe think about a takedown. But then he eats some jabs when he's standing at range. But then he lands some step-in lefts and then a right hook to the body. But then he lands some jabs and then an overhand right, and then he lands another body hook, and then to the head, but then he eats a knee on his way in, just kind of rushing a little bit. And then in the third round, he kind of gets he starts getting a little desperate as the fight goes on for those takedowns, but he never really fully commits. In the third round, he presses with the right cross and some overhands. Then he gets pressed backwards and eats an uppercut and some jabs from Calvin. Then in the fourth round, he loses the distance closes distance with some overhands to the clinch, but he's not able to keep the clinch really significantly. Then he throws some overhands, not really hitting the target, kind of. That might be like brushing Calvin. But then he walks into another cross from Calvin, but he presses forward, and then he lands a cross off of Calvin's jab, but then he walks into a spinning elbow, gets rocked, then he eats a clean 1-2 down the middle. Really nice from Calvin. But he hangs in there, but then he lands an overhand blitz right at the end of the round, just trying to get some activity going, maybe steal a round. Then in the fifth round, he slips, and then he lands a jab, and then an overhand. And then he's just kind of standing right at the end of the jabs at range, so it's like barely brushing him or not touching him, but he's standing like right there trying to get his way in. And then he counters with the overhand left and then a right over top of the jabs. So pretty close back and forth fight. Score it however you want. I don't really have a problem. I thought Calvin won that one, but Josh did enough, man. Emmett plus 155, Yair minus 180. To be honest, I don't know. I think Rodriguez is gonna win, but technical-wise, honestly, hard for me to keep up with it. These guys are very fast. I think Emmett is gonna try to utilize the wrestling, but a lot more. But he barely shot on Calvin, and he wasn't able to keep control whenever he did shoot or did go for the clinch. So I just don't know how effective it's going to be for Josh. I think Josh is going to be looking for that big shot, big overhand. But I think Yair is just so dynamic. He's going to be sticking and moving. He's going to be throwing kicks, a whole bunch of stuff at Josh. And I just think Josh, his last two fights, They were very close. He's taken some damage. I think Rodriguez is going to be able to stick him and move him. Might even get a submission attempt. Josh might take a sloppy takedown. Yair might catch him in something. I'm going to go with Yair Rodriguez. Minus 180, not too bad of a line. But, you know, we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, I don't think Emmett's going to knock him out. Yair has a hell of a chin, but, you know, maybe Josh gets his TKO or something. It's possible, but I just don't think Josh is going to be able to complete any takedowns. And then the whole fight to go under 4.5 rounds plus 120, I like that one. And finally, the main event, 155 pounds men's lightweight for the lightweight strap super fight. Pound for pound number 1 versus pound for pound number 2. The pound for pound title on the line. The lightweight strap on the line. Islam Makhachev taking on Alexander the Great Volkanovski. Volkanovski, of course, coming up from 145 for this great challenge of champions. Let's get right into this. Makhachev took on Charles Oliveira his last fight. In the first round, he lands some overhands and hooks when he gets pressed, and he backs up Oliveira, and then he gets an overhand wizard, and he hips into the body lock attempt that Charles does. It was like a half-ass body lock attempt by him. He gets on top, ground and pound from full guard. You know how it goes. Back on the feet, he wizard kicks from the clinch. Then he lands some nasty elbows in full guard. Charles catches like one up kick, but nothing crazy. Then in the second round, he lands a left cross when he gets pressed, and then he pulls that tie clinch, lands some nice knees, and then he gets the underhook, and then he gets double unders, and then he tries to go for the hip toss, but then he just kind of lands some more knees in there. Charles gets a couple in there too, but so is Islam, you know, he's keeping up with them. Then he sidesteps the straight shots, and then he lands a hook, and then he just kind of circles, trying to look for his entrance, and then he throws some long hooks, and then a head kick from range, and then he drops him with the right hook off of a jump knee from Charles. Low IQ movement from Charles, but Islam, very high IQ fighter, took full advantage of it. Jumps right on top of him, gets the arm triangle submission. Charles taps almost immediately. Dude's got a hell of a squeeze. Yeah, dude. Islam's decent on the feet, pretty good on the feet. So he impressed a lot of people, impressed me. And then Alexander took on Max Holloway his last fight in July. This was the third fight between them. In the first round, he lands a step-in jab and then a right cross. Then he slides in with the overhand right, and then he just kind of backs out. He's moving in and out a lot. It's his game. He's got a longer reach than Islam, and has longer reach than Max, by the way. So, and he's shorter, so it's kind of dangerous. But then he lands a lead jab and then some hooks in the clinch, and then he rocks him with a lead left hook off of Max's jab. But then he eats some crosses in the pocket, but he's all good, baby. Then in the second round, he gets pressured back, but then he jabs, then lands some step-in right crosses. He gets the body lock, gets around his back standing. Can't do much with it. I don't think he's going for a takedown. He's just kind of trying to break up the momentum. But then he rips a straight overhand, and then a straight right, and then he circles out and he kind of just squares back up with them. He's right back in his face, pressuring back steadily. Then he eats some straights, and he's getting backed up. And then in the third round, he lands some jabs, some 1-2s whenever Max is coming into him. But then he lands a lunge overhand, some lunge overhand combinations, and then he gets the clinch off of Max's knee. But he'll literally clinch him and literally walk him to the cage. It's like a slow pace. It was kind of a low energy fight, to be honest, but, you know, anything he can do to maintain his position. Then in the fourth round, he ducks the overhand to the body lock and then lands the elbow and then some short hooks. And then he'll break and then he'll go right back in there for the clinch. Then he lands a step-in jab, then he backs out of range. He gets caught in the body lock when he's lunging in, but then he's able to reverse that position. Good pummeling from him. And then he's kind of available to be kicked whenever Max is throwing that spinning back kick. But, you know, he's sidestepping and he's not really getting hit. He might get brushed a little bit, but, you know, he kind of knows what's coming from Max and is able to block everything. And then in the fifth round, he defends a double leg off of his jab, and then he lands some leg kicks whenever he gets pressed. And then he just is able to block the head kicks from Max. Just kind of knows it's coming. Masterful performance from him. To be honest, Max looked a little slow, a little off, but, you know, what are you going to say, dude? Volkanovski beat him 3 times. It was an amazing performance by him. Alex plus 310. Islam minus 380. I'm going to go with Alexander Volkanovski, man, because why not? They're in Perth, Australia. Yeah, dude, the wrestling, that's going to be the biggest thing. Obviously, Volkanovski is smaller than Islam. Islam's a big 155er as it is. But, you know, Volkanovski's up to the challenge, and you bet your ass he's been working on his wrestling. I know Ortega caught him in a couple submission attempts, but, you know, that shows the heart of the champion. Maybe he needed that to get better. And since that Ortega fight killed Korean Zombie, demolished Max. Maybe it helped him, you know? And, yeah, obviously Alex wants to keep this fight on the feet. I think he might be able to. I think he might get taken down a couple times, but as long as he can stop a couple of takedowns and make Islam work for it, or if he can just hold off to the end of the round, maybe lose the first 2 rounds even, I'm sure Islam's got a great gas tank, and so does Alex, but Alex is going to benefit if he can drag this fight on longer. You know, Alex has the striking advantage, more dynamic striker. He'll be in and out. He has a longer reach than Islam, and he's shorter, so that means he'll be able to get on the inside and land some straight shots. But I think Alex just, you know, just needs to keep working, man. Just keep pressuring him and kind of frustrate Islam. I think he'll be able to do that. Now, is Alexander going to try to wrestle Islam? Who knows? But I just like his chances here. You know, to be honest, I think Islam's going to win. But, you know, you got to go with it. He's a big underdog, plus 310. Why the hell not? They're in Perth. Magical things happen in title fights. I'm going to go with Alexander the Great. All right, everyone. Thanks for riding with me. I appreciate it. Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, all that stuff. Check the link in the bio. Like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Leave some comments. Let me know. Give me your picks. I need help too. Let's see some upsets. Let's see some violence. And let's see some profits. Good luck, everyone. And can't wait for the #1 pound for pound versus #2 pound for pound.